Okay, we've already talked about this. So I guess the important thing here is that when we're promoting intensification and using existing building stock and redeveloping, any kind of development has to be in compliance with the policies in the other sections of PPS. Okay, so the wise use and management of our resources, which we'll talk about, sewer, water, roads, all of that, and then protecting public health and safety, which is hazard zones. Okay, we're going to promote the appropriate development standards. We've already talked about that. Okay, shall establish and implement minimum targets. We're going to talk about where we want to establish these targets, where we're going to encourage intensification and redevelopment, and where greenfield developments, we're going to have a combination, are going to occur. Well, this is the most important one. I think this is what we're going to struggle with. I think the phasing policies. Where do we want it? How are we going to control it? That's going to be our biggest struggle. I hope that we can come to a reasonable, have a good reasonable discussion on it and come to some conclusions that are in keeping with the PPS and promote good servicing policies. That's going to be our struggle, I think.
How close are we to other municipalities in our area along here, like when we head up towards Bayfield or we head down towards Sarnia? How close are we in phasing, like getting to phasing policies that match? Or are we sitting back here kind of, and I'm going to use the term backwater, but like are they ahead of us? Like this provincial policy statement's been around for a number of years. Are we at a stage where competitively, South Huron, for example, and Blue Water and that, are we at their same paces? Like have we all grown at the same paces? Do you know what I'm saying? Like are we sitting here doing something that everybody else has done for 20 years? And the reason I'm asking that is when I'm on Facebook, the economic development in Huron County has, every week they have these wonderful things that they're putting out there. Sometimes they talk about subdivision growth, sometimes they talk about other things that they're doing. So I'm wondering where we stand in this. Is this a rush that we're way behind? Are we at the same pace? Like, are all groups going through what we're doing right now?
It's not a rush. It's come to the forefront because we're doing a new official plan. It's not a rush.
Okay.
Our current, I mean, it's not like we don't have any more land to develop. We got lots of it. It's just a matter of us prioritizing and getting, because of the PPS, because we're doing a new OP, establishing where we want to go in 20 years. So no, we're not behind.
We're not behind, we're just reviewing.
Yeah. I have one little question. Okay, so we're talking about intensification, we're talking about redevelopment of brownfield sites if possible. And, where in our statement, where it relates to the provincial policy statement, do we look at things like low-income housing or stuff? Because Grand Bend's a good example. So if we build it up to a point where it does become a tourist destination, like I've seen the Whistler phenomenon where it got so big they actually have to bus people in from miles away because nobody can afford to live there. That has to work there. Do we have, where do we start putting that into our planning? Or are you going to get that later? Or
well, we will talk about it, but I think the key aspect to providing affordable housing is it's the density discussion again. Okay, the higher the density, the more units you get on a property, they're more cost effective. Right? That's the way it works.
Well, I didn't in Whistler, but I see what you're saying.
Well, it's intended.
Yeah.
Whistler is a tourist town. That, I mean, it's hard to combat that because people are buying there for a different reason than just. But we have to look globally at, not globally, but we have to look at Lambton Shores. We're not just talking about Grand Bend.
No.
We have lots of affordable housing across Lambton Shores, lots of it. Yeah.
Councilor Johnston.
Yeah, that's, I was just gonna say, Patty, I think that's the issue. We have affordable housing in this town right here. It's not selling. And the reason it's not selling is services, right? So people wanna go where there's a grocery store or a health center or whatever. So I think that's where the planning comes into it, is that, yeah, you're right, we do have identifiable areas, but are the services the same?
And that's why we need to be more strategic about where we're gonna promote growth, so we can get all the services that people want, right? there's no doubt smaller towns are at a disadvantage because there's not enough people there to support a grocery store, or even, I know, in my own town, Sombra, our variety store is probably gonna close because there just isn't enough people. Everybody drives to work and goes someplace else and comes back, right? So on the way home, you stop. I buy all my groceries in Forest, you know, so there you go.
Councilor Russell.
Maddie, to Councilor Underwood's question about the affordable housing, right? Would that not be in the slide before in terms of housing intensification? So you'd set your targets. I think he asked about targets earlier, didn't you? Targets, measurables. And I think in that one slide, we talk about measurables. So you're gonna set up measurables, and part of those measurables could be affordable housing, correct?
Sure could,
Because we
yeah.
did that in one of our OPs back in the mid-nineties.
You can do that as.
So you,
municipality.
as a measurable, right?
Yeah.
As a measurable, you'll say that maybe,
Yeah.
for an example, we'll take Grand Bend. If you have that huge housing stock in Grand Bend that we know what happened with impact in the last two impacts, right? The fact is cottages for rent, kind of disappeared, and everybody, they upgraded and they're larger places and more, et cetera, et cetera. But there are people who actually have to service those people.
Right.
I hate to say it that way, but that's the way it works in life. And we know what the demographics and census data shows that Grand Bend really is not a rich population. We have a lot of working class people who are there. So I think that's where targets come in. That's where targets come in. And that's through a process of saying, okay, you've got that many services and people in this area, and you're going to have so many, or when you develop a new thing, that we will put in 10% of it will be double wides or whatever the heck you call the different ones that are more affordable housing.
Well,
and that's how you set the measurabilities, right? You have to have mixed housing within the unit. It can't all be for a certain strata. And if it's all for a certain strata, you're going to have a rich ghetto. That's what you end up with. And people complaining about, well, other things. They'll start talking about social problems.
exactly, and I think that's, we have, we'll take Grand Bend again. We have a lot of large lot development in Grand Bend. Maybe we need to look at the other side of that. We need some smaller lot development. But Rice is starting to get there. Like Rice has reasonable sized lots, they're urban lots.
But did we
Guild Road subdivision.
do a normal thing with Grand Bend? Grand Bend as a contiguous village was a small thing. It was
Yeah.
so many acres. What was it, Bob, 200 acres or something? It was
It's
very
small.
small in
Yeah.
1952. And from there, we have suburbia.
Yes,
We have
do.
linear suburbia,
Yeah.
going north and south. We used to call it the greater Grand Bend area.
Mhm.
And I think the simple fact of the matter is now we have to adjust to that
Yeah.
and start, I
That's
think the
right,
tools
John.
are there.
Absolutely, the tools are all
But
there.
we've done that with Marywood, right? Marywood, I would consider Marywood as in modern terms, more of a suburb look than Southcott, Huron Woods, Beach of Pines. The lots there are what, half-acre lots?
They're half-acre lots, so they're about the same
So like
size as
Deer
South
Run.
Pines.
Okay.
And Deer Run, yeah. Very much suburbia, yeah, very much
That was the
state
start of
size.
the time.
But,
Okay.
okay, so we'll just,
Dr. Meriday, and then you're gonna have to find a spot to cut this off.
okay,
Yeah, just back to your previous slide that you were talking about us going through a discussion about phasing the policies and things like that. I think it'd be really helpful for us in that exercise to be speaking with the contractors themselves and to have some focus groups about what are the demands. I think it may be unwise for us to just try to arbitrarily impose an intensification image on something which the contractors and others are not seeing a demand for. It may be because we can think idealistically that it would be really nice to have that, but if it's not going to sell, and maybe probably the first line that understands what the demand is. So,
I think if we look at our most recent development, we'll take Grand Bend again. Hill Road subdivision, Rice. That's what that's the most current development standards, the most current development ideas for Grand Bend, which is smaller than what was there previously, right? It's smaller, there's no doubt about that.
I guess the question is if there's some of that, that's great, absolutely. It does cater to a different demographic, or a different financial level. But I'm just saying that there's different perspectives, and I think that we're not the experts on what the demands are because that's not our expertise. So I think it'd be very important for us to have those people here as part of that discussion, so we can.
Well, that's why we have public participation in the OP review.
Yeah, we're developing this, that's going to the public for their input. And it's like, that's where it comes from, is what they want
What's the demand?
in the official plan. That's part of the review. So,
Okay, so new development taking place within designated growth areas should occur adjacent to existing built-up areas. We've talked about that.
Quarter after.
Yep.